All right, buddy. Welcome, Adam. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I guess to start, the best way to start this would say, please say your name for the record.
I'm Adam Freedman. I'm an entertainment attorney repping people mostly in the music industry.
Awesome, man. I'm always trying to figure out how to start these things, and I thought that would be a different twist. Um, I'll start, but for real, we'll start with: did you kind of get the electronic music bug first, or did you get into or interested in becoming a lawyer first and fell into electronic music?
So I kind of fell into electronic music for the most part. So I went to law school kind of not knowing what I was going to do with my life. I played in bands growing up. Then while I was in law school, another guy in my class was like, let's try throwing a concert. And they just kind of happened to be electronic artists. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the artist Grizz. We threw like
I
his
am.
second ever show in South Florida, which was awesome. Like his second ever show. It was in Revolution in Fort Lauderdale back in like 2012.
I
And kind of
remember
through
those
that,
shows.
I just met a lot of people in just in the electronic industry. We kept throwing shows. We threw a weekly bass music show in Miami in like 2012 through 2014 while I was down there. And obviously, we were way ahead of our times. Those shows did not do that well. But yeah, I just met a ton of people in the electronic world. And yeah, when I graduated, I moved to New York. I got a job at another entertainment firm, worked there for a couple of years, and then went back to this network of electronic artists that I met, and those became my first clients.
That's good. That's good, man. I love that. I mean, funny enough, most people know me for more underground sounds, but during this second, when Space got acquired the first time, it was by the Opium Group, who had like an EDM club, and they had a
Mhm.
dubstep and bass night, and I inherited that role, so I had to learn all about those sounds and book those artists. So I took a real deep dive in that side of the world for a little
I
bit.
told you I went to a couple of those shows, Trap Night at Space, back in like 2012.
Yeah, I did all those too because it was
What a
kind of like
world!
we were like kind of doing like combo offers at that time. So it was like we would do like a 4 or 5 year offer, and it would be like 2 or 3 at Mansion, and then 2 or 3
Yeah,
at Space downstairs when they had the trap room.
yeah, love that.
It was fun. I wasn't into that music just because of what I had heard previous to it, but as I got to know the artists and hear like their sets, I really grew an appreciation for it. And I always tell people those artists are funner to be around than the music I prefer, who everybody's a little bit more too serious with themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah, I kind of do miss it a little bit. It was a fun era, and I didn't have to stay out as late. Like
Of
those
course.
guys don't do marathon sets and things. It was like
Yeah.
a good 2, maybe 3 hours set, and then you're home. And
Okay.
when you're doing it every weekend, that's nice sometimes.
Right. Now I'm gonna stay up the entire night
Yeah,
for
not
sure.
being out at 9 or 10 in the morning every Friday, Saturday can be
Now's the
nice.
time. 10 years ago,
Yeah.
more. 13
Excuse
years
me.
ago.
You don't. I know. I kind of started this with the whole electronic music thing, but I guess I also know you don't just do. You kind of do every genre. Anyone that needs your services. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I have a huge group of clients in electronic genre, huge group of clients in hip hop, but clients all over the place for sure. Bands, singers, all over the place.
Is there like a I know they come to you for lots of different services, and I know this because I've come to you for things. But is there like a common denominator service that you see pop up more than anything, like a problem or whatever that might be?
Well, just for artists, like I handle a lot of contract stuff. So whenever you're signing tracks to a new label, if you're getting a publishing deal, I'm seeing that every single day. Yeah, people signing over music to a certain label, signing over an EP that they put a lot of effort into. It's probably worth putting another couple $100 into a lawyer to make sure the paperwork's all correct.
Yeah, it's totally worth every penny. Is there something that you wish people or artists or managers understood more about your role that maybe is, taken wrong?
Um, I think a big thing I see is managers trying to do everything themselves. They say they got it, And the only reason that's true is because nothing really went wrong. So it's kind of just by luck they happened to have it up to this point. But I see that continuing up for like big managers who are constantly doing stuff that they don't know, and it just happens to work out because the artist is so poppin'. Yeah, so I think a lot of people at a certain point would benefit just from bringing in a lawyer, just kind of to get another like objective set of eyes on everything, just to, yeah, just they don't know what they don't know, because I get to see stuff in different genres, and something interesting is different genres seem to have different rules all the time. Like I just got into it with an electronic artist manager, because in hip hop, like if an artist is putting out music, it's probably through a label, and kind of advancing the legal fee for the producers is like a very normal thing in hip hop, happens all the time, because they're probably, if I'm an artist manager, I don't want to deal with a 17-year-old kid who doesn't know anything. I'd rather pay a few $100 just so I'm dealing with someone who does know what they're talking about. But in electronic music, that's completely unheard of, even though the situation might be the exact same. I just thought that's just an example of just different rules.
I mean, I always try to push anyone I work with to use a lawyer, just because one, I want to separate almost the risk for myself. Like, I'll tell like an artist I'm working with, like, hey, you should do this. I can kind of semi-advise you based on my experience, but I also don't want to tell you to do something and I get it wrong because I'm not a lawyer.
Right.
And then the one time I maybe don't help them with a lawyer is like if I'm signing an artist for management, I'll tell them that they should seek out through someone they know, their own lawyer who is they're paying and they've hired and has zero influence by me before you sign an agreement with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure that doesn't happen a lot.
Right, the extra step of like you shouldn't even go with someone I recommend, but that might be overkill.
On the club stuff, I've just been in like legal stuff enough to know that like I always try to take an extra layer of protection.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, but at the same time, like I don't know what could go wrong. Like if they like, how influenced could they be by you?
Well, I only really do that on the management when they're signing the agreement to come for me to be their manager.
Right.
Where I'm like, you have someone review it on your behalf, so later if there's something that came out and you were unhappy with, you can't be like, well, Travis told me to sign this and then picked out my lawyer and then he advised me to sign this. So it's more like a down the road protection, which hopefully I never need, because I truly think I do things fairly, but never hurts.
Mm-hmm.
So this video, this pod is going to go out on my normal YouTube, which I've already been putting out individual content. And the common denominator of who's watching so far are pretty much like bedroom or local artists.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, can you just break down the different types of royalties and maybe in like a layman term so they understand it, from like performance, sync, neighboring rights and stuff like that, if you don't, in just a very simple layman terms.
Okay, maybe we should start with just like master and publishing before getting into like neighboring rights. Because a lot of people don't know, if you just put out music through a CD Baby, through TuneCore, you'll get royalties for your music, but that's really like 80% of the money. The other 20% is publishing royalties, which a lot of people don't know about. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you just are putting out music on TuneCore and you're not also registering it on ASCAP and BMI and those different places, you're totally leaving money on the table.
Do you have a preference from BMI to ASCAP?
I don't have a preference. They're basically the same. I mean, there's like, I forget which one. One of them just got acquired by like a private equity group. So they're, so kind of who knows what the landscape is going to look like. Maybe services are going to get worse and things like that. But so far, I kind of have an equal experience with both.
Okay. Yeah, I tend to use BMI more than the other.
Why?
Just because I've just gotten more familiar with their dashboard. So when onboarding someone new, it's kind of like I already know what I'm doing.
Totally.
So it's more just a convenience factor. And since same thing, I've always heard through the grapevine that the differences are very little. So like if they're almost the same, just use the one that I'm more familiar with.
Yeah, I do know that ASCAP, it's harder to get in touch with like a specific person. You don't get like an account manager right away, but you have to send like a message through the contact form, but they are very responsive through that. Like I've never really had an issue with them just not responding or anything.
Okay, that's good to know. And then I guess you mentioned TuneCore, DistroKid. I've never used either. Like I've always either, for the artists I work with, we've either gotten signed to labels, small or big,
Mm-hmm.
or just if we wanted to go the independent route, I would just go to a distributor, set up our own label, and do it that way. But
Mm-hmm.
I do read a lot of things, good and bad, about these distro kids and TuneCores and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What's your overall opinion on that?
What do you like? What do you think is the downside of that?
I've just read a lot of times, but like the common thing that I read is I constantly see things where artists are like, the second my record took off on one of these platforms, my music got released because of bots. And in all my career of working with artists, I've never had a single release removed from bots, and we've had things go like kind of like diabolical in an upward direction.
Totally.
So when I see that constantly happening with these platforms, and again, I have no experience, it just makes me wonder like what's causing that difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, the objective answer of what's causing that is the way that the streaming services are set up. Like the major labels have equity in them, and I don't know, they set up these rules of like anti-fraud protection and stuff, but rules for thee and not for me. So it's for everyone else who's not one of the shareholders, which are just the independent distributors. They're just held to a much higher standard, and
Makes
so
sense.
it's really up to. And then they set up so TuneCore has to police itself so TuneCore doesn't get kicked off the streaming services. So that's where that high bar comes from.
So I guess they maybe over police to protect themselves a bit.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And I will say out of like the thousands and thousands of songs I've seen get released on those via those companies, I've seen that happen once in my like 9-year career as an attorney.
That makes sense. Yeah, like I said, I've never worked with them, so I have no experience. But I've read a lot of horror stories, and I figured, why not bring it up? But
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, most people have a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what do you think? I guess a new artist. What do you think? Maybe they misunderstand most about collecting royalties.
That they need to do it. That so many people are just like so not on top of it, especially I guess I see it more so especially with artists as they're learning all this stuff is they're just expecting this to get paid. They're just expecting to get paid on a certain day and expecting to get like a I don't know balloons for it, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they come to me they come to me realizing it's been years and they haven't been paid for a song. Yeah, they haven't been paid for a song for years or yeah, stuff like that. I see that all the time because they just never looked into it. But it's your money. No one else is going to take better care of it than you are.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of your tweets about this. This is why I brought it up. And then, um, I guess I feel like for me, the most obvious counter to that, which isn't the good thing, is I think most artists are afraid because they've gotten signed to a handful of these cool labels or these smaller labels that they're just dying to work with, and then they're afraid to stir the pot because they don't want to get alienated from working
So,
with them in the
what do
future.
you think about that? Because that's something that I am fortunate that I don't have to deal with as an attorney. Is I don't need to do those sort of politics.
So I think that, like, at least in what I do, like underground or semi-mainstream electronic music, since everybody knows or artists understand that the money's so small, and maybe this label is doing a party in Miami and Ibiza and all these places, and they know that the touring revenue is probably going to make up 80 or 90% of what they're going to potentially make one day. I think they look at it like, I'll put up with this thing because I don't want to get blacklisted from playing events or
But like,
venues
would
that
that get you blacklisted just by emailing like, "Hey, just checking in about those royalties"? It seems they're due.
you would think. But I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of fragile egos in this business.
So
I
as
don't
a
know if
man,
any of that's true. That's just my opinion from just kind of watching stuff on the outside.
so as a manager though, would you typically recommend like, yeah, don't follow up, just keep it moving, and they'll.
No, I
keep
mean, I
those
always
opportunities
follow
for
up. I
shows.
always try to follow up, at least with the stuff that I maybe arrange. It's a little harder sometimes when you're dealing with an artist and they go out and work out all their own deals and kind of just do it very quickly and don't always put me in the loop. And then maybe they signed a contract because they were so excited to get this
Right.
thing done or whatever. And I'm just so out of the communication that I can't clean up somebody else's mess. So it's like, oh, I don't even know what conversation you might have had on text, WhatsApp, or a phone call. And
Totally.
now you're unhappy with the deal. And I'm talking to
Totally. Being
one
unhappy with the
side.
deal is one thing, but I mean, following up about the royalties that are
The
clearly owed.
royalties, yeah, I think a lot of labels are small in this world, electronic. Like 90% of the stuff you're gonna get signed on, they're a tiny
Yep.
one-man operation. So probably most of the time the royalties aren't getting paid out because the person on the other end doesn't even know how to do it.
Yeah, agreed.
Like even me, we have a small label, and we're just doing it for the overall brand of Humans Alike. And my distributor offers a royalty service that I lose money on paying them to do it, but at least I don't have to do it.
Yeah. I mean,
And
that's like an easy
since
solve to that problem, though, if you don't know how to do it. But
well, I
people
think
are
it's
all
easy for me because we have the event side that pays for those little things. So we don't like, all right, we'll take an L here, but it overall helps our brand, and the event
is
side is
that
what we
like
can.
is that an extra fee or is that just like an extra percentage?
Yeah, so for my distributor charges, I think it's like 200 or 250 euros a month for
Mm,
it's label services, which includes their royalty part, and it includes them doing my pitching. So they
mm,
do all my pitching for me, which that's actually cheaper than if I were to go to a private pitching service. So I look at it as a win there.
mm.
And then I think once your label gets to a certain scale, they switch to like a small percent instead of a monthly fee.
Makes sense.
So for me, it was just easier because I'm a busy guy. So when they offered that service, I was like, yeah, that'll be great. I've always wanted to do a label, but that side of the business scares the crap out of me from a
Totally.
time management perspective and just, hey, look, reality, I don't have the knowledge.
Totally. Yeah. And not many people do. Not many people do know like proper label accounting, but yeah, some people take it on.
Mm-hmm. Um, what are some tools or things that they could do to track these things easier or manage it? If I have an artist that has 200 records signed to
Mm,
maybe a combination of 50 plus labels.
that's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer for that,
That's a,
especially
that's not a bad thing.
especially in dance music. I mean, that makes it hard because, like you were saying, the money is like not big.
Hmm.
There might be at most a couple $1,000 for a track, but over 200 tracks, most are probably not doing that well. It just
Hmm.
is hardly worth the effort at a certain point.
Yeah, I think that's where most of it becomes. Like I'll even sometimes be like, it's not worth. Like I can go to their
Like,
Spotify and
yeah,
a
if it's
few.
under a couple million streams, it's under a million streams, it's not even worth it.
I think 99% of electronic music artists are barely
Or
getting
not hitting
10
a
or a
million
hundred
streams.
thousand.
Right.
So I think they don't even bother. That's why I say go back to that first thing where I was saying where it's like, all right, if I'm under 10,000 streams, is it worth
That is
even
not even worth it.
torturing?
For
Is it
sure.
worth torturing someone to maybe burn that other bridge where I know I'm going to need to make money on
If
touring?
that was the assumption, then yes, you're absolutely
Yes.
right. Then
So
I would
that's
say
kind of where I was
don't
going with
even
that
bother.
earlier.
So people say a million streams is like 4,000. A million streams on Spotify is like $4,000. So if you're getting
Hmm.
10,000 streams, it's like $4.
Yeah, it's under
So
worth it.
so that's just an easy way to know if it's worth it.
And then I guess I want to dive into contracting because I think that's going to be more important. But before, since we're talking about this conversation, the thing that comes up a lot is the artists feel that they're underpaid.
Mm-hmm.
And I sit on both sides of this because I also watch, like, I pay attention to stocks, and I'm like, all right, well, Spotify relatively is not a profitable company. I think maybe they're finally a little profitable, if I'm correct. I haven't
Right.
paid attention in the last year or so, but I know anything more than 2 years ago, they were a losing company. Um,
Yep.
I guess how do you is this model just broken? Do you think? Like,
Oof.
and I know it's a hard conversation. Maybe you don't even have an answer for it, but
I think we just need to
um,
like I don't know, we need to like pin that down a little bit because are artists like, is the model broken? Well, me being able to work in these other genres, there's so much money in other genres in other areas. Like I work with a lot of hip hop producers. I have a client who produced. I have a 17-year-old kid produced one big song for like a new big artist. This guy, Boss Man D'Lo. He's made so much money, it would make you furious.
That's crazy.
He paid for his college, so that's like an amazing success story. But yeah, these other genres just do such bigger streaming numbers that there's so much money in other areas. But then in hip hop, live performance is so bad. You see these people doing 100 million streams, doing 500 capacity venues in your city, even in New York.
That it's funny you say that because I also see the same. I'll sometimes see like a high streaming electronic music artist. There's an artist coming up. I'm not going to name him, but he's doing hundreds of millions of plays in electronic music.
Mm-hmm.
And the fee I offered him was a few grand. And there was obviously back and forth with the agent and manager there, but I was like, look, they have zero data in this market. The things that I look at is showing that he's not going to sell tickets, and so far I'm correct. And it's crazy that they're able to convert in one area and not the other.
Did that artist ended up not selling tickets, or so far is not?
The show's coming up. It's going to do fine for what I paid him. When he's sick in, like for me, if I sick into this under like $3,000 or $4,000 range, even if it doesn't sell tickets, I could pack out the room for free, and the bar revenue, because house music specifically and tech house and like anything within that box, the crowd drinks a lot. They tend to be 25, 26 to like 40. Disposable income. They like to have fun, and as much as people are claiming that alcohol sales are going down, in that world, it's quite the opposite.
You're not seeing, at least in Miami?
I mean, in what we're doing specifically, no. I hear it like on a more global scale, or a more, I guess,
macro scale.
SAID or macro, yeah. They're seeing it across the board where liquor sales are down. I think people that are going out with the intention to party 5 or 6 hours straight, not as like a social thing, but to like have a good night out, dancing, socializing, listening to music, they're going to kick back a few drinks.
Yep.
At least that's what I'm seeing on my side. But the spending is changing in other areas, like cover charges and things.
Do you seeing it going down or going up?
Big DJs, it's getting more and more expensive. So I almost equate
because in New York, I'm seeing the prices be ridiculous. I mean, Brooklyn Mirage.
No. On the big DJs, the door covers and ticket sales are insane. I almost equate it to what's happening in the United States as a whole.
Right.
So I think the middle class of electronic music is making no money. I think on the bottom side, where you're able to do free parties, you make up for it with the liquor sales. Or on the big side, you're able to make it with massive ticket sales and VIP and silver bar revenue.
Right.
But I think anyone in this, for me as a booker, anything in this like 6,000 to 15,000, even 20,000 booking range, that's where it becomes hard to make money.
Totally. I'm even thinking from the fan perspective, I can't. Yeah, the like $40 ticket stuff, that seems to be all gone. Yeah, it's all $80, $100 plus, $140 for whoever.
It's that. So I think the middle class of electronic music is gone, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I don't mean it as a person. I just mean it as like an option to buy.
Dang.
Let's do contracts.
Yep.
That's your specialty. For anyone listening, if you don't have the budget, Adam sells a lot of templated contracts on his website for like $10 to $30, I want to say.
Yep.
And there's a ton of options there. Check it out. But if you do have the budget to protect yourself, give him a call. What do you think the most common contract mistake new artists make?
Is signing things without reading them.
Yeah.
I see that all the time, even with my own clients. They should read the contract. Even though they trust me, it's their life. It's not my life as the lawyer. And even if you're one of these artists who, like, it gives you a headache, you're totally overwhelmed, like, put it into AI. Say, just summarize the contract, point out if there's any problems. It'll give you the bullet points. And if you can't do that, like, there's really no excuse, in my opinion.
I agree. I have a friend, I give a lot of advice to some local kids, and one of them sent me an agreement recently, and it had a weird term for exclusivity for a one single release. Like it
Hmm.
wasn't like there was no advance money, there was no guaranteed on marketing or anything. It was just like a
Right.
single release. And in there they had like a weird exclusivity for his next couple releases. And he was like, "No, I'm
Mm.
fine with it." And I was like, "Are you though?" I go, "There's no upfront deal, and what if you make this next track that's like perfect for this other dream label of yours?" And you're like, "I know 100% this dream label's gonna sign it." And now you're like, "Oh, I have to send it to them first." And they have to deny it in order for me to send it to my dream label.
And then,
And I
yeah,
was like,
then when you put
and
it
they're
that way,
and I was like, and then they're more likely gonna take it if you in your heart know it's this, you made something special. So I was like, unless they're giving you some kind of upfront guarantee of either money or marketing or promotion or investment into the record, I
hmm,
was like, you shouldn't guarantee them any future business.
totally. Did he
He fought
agree?
it, luckily. Yeah. Well, at first he was like, he just wanted to be on the label, and then I was like, dude, I'm just telling you, like in my soul, like, you know, push back and see what happens. If they're very adamant about that being in there, I go,
Hmm.
then decide. But I go, it doesn't hurt you to push back once. And he pushed
Right.
back, and they took it out.
There you go. Easy as that.
But he threw that in. I was actually gonna ask you the AI thing next because he threw it in the AI and it completely missed that part. But
Mm.
I do the same thing of what you're saying. I throw stuff in the AI all the time. I tell it to summarize it for me. I still read it, but at least make it a little simple before I go on to
It might
whatever's
miss
next.
things. It might not be exactly correct, but it's 1,000% better than not reading it.
Are you, I guess, threatened by this AI solutions
No, I'm
or
not.
no?
Not at all. I actually use AI in my work a lot, in a lot
Same.
too. It, like it's good to. It's like, yeah, it's good. It's good that overall, I think it's good that it's allowing that it's like taking away the lowest value, easiest work. And if I could save myself, and if people only need to hire lawyers for the higher value stuff, I mean that's perfectly fine with me.
It makes sense. Are you worried that like it's almost like a WebMD thing where eventually people are going to come to you and be like, you're going to give them your opinion? They're going to be like, well, I asked ChatGPT and it
I've
says
seen
this.
posts on social media where lawyers are dealing with that. I personally haven't dealt with it that much. I more so deal with people who don't even take that step and are just deferring to me 1,000% with whatever they'll go with whatever I say or whatever the manager says. Yeah, so I think it's a good thing, and also I do a lot more than just like answering questions. I write letters. I will strategize with you. I will make sure because a lot of times you plug in a contract with ChatGPT and you say point out all the issues. Sometimes it would point out a ton of issues, some high priority, a lot probably low priority, like a lot in the boilerplate language at the end. It'll probably point out some changes there. But then you might not want to go back to the other side with a contract that's like totally marked up, that you're marking up the indemnification clause. And even if the other side asks you, do you know even know what you're asking here? And you don't,
Yeah.
that is not a good place to be.
So what are some common red flags? I guess we could say on one side a basic label agreement with like an EP or a single that people should look out for. Given that there's no money on those, I'm not even sure if that's even
Yeah,
a
it's less like
concern.
contractual red flags, just off the top of my head. It's more, I'd say it's more like things to look out for in the process. For example, if someone's rushing you to sign, if you say you're getting a lawyer and they're kind of like offended by that, if they're turned off by that, that's a red flag. Um,
That makes
a
sense.
lot of times, like if, I mean, a lot of times people, like I see contracts that are just like super sloppy, have a ton of typos and stuff like that. Like if they didn't input like your name and address, if they didn't input their own name and address, it's a red flag too. It means like just what level of professionalism are you like are you going to expect when you're working with someone like that who can't even format their document?
Makes sense. And then I guess on a more um, slightly bigger, like the first artist I ever managed, I got like super lucky. I knew nothing, and maybe 4 to 5 months in, I got a small advance deal with like a 3 option, 12 records per option. We ended up only doing one of the options, and then there was a, you know, the label gave us a way out because they were getting bought out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was great for the artist, and at the time, a huge learning experience. I don't know if I would do a deal like that again for so small or so early in someone's career, because there was
Right.
a lot of constraints in the developing phase. But I guess they took up pretty much everything, publishing, 100% of revenue until that advance was paid back. Um, what I guess what are the red flag? We hired a lawyer for that. I knew nothing, so I immediately was like,
Well,
this
what are your
seems
thoughts
like
about that? Like, even just in retrospect, like, would you have done
one.
it? Like, does it
I didn't even know what an option was at that point
like
in my
was it
life.
a shit deal looking back on it?
So everyone that I respected, managers wise, told me not to do the deal.
Hmm.
We went back and forth for probably 4 months, just deciding pros and cons. And in the end, we just where this artist was at. I think his best record at the time had maybe 5 or 10,000 plays. The label believed in what I was doing and what he was doing in this genre. They kind of saw where that was going, and we were just like, look, if we at most it's 12 records. If we do something else with these 12 records, you're probably not going to make anything on them anyways. But what we'll get here is better distribution and maybe access to like their resources. So it
Yeah.
worked out. I mean, this I think like the fourth record, he went and hit like a major editorial playlist. We got like 3.5 million plays from it. Like we learned a lot about working with songwriters and engineers and like a bunch of these different things. So like from a learning experience side, it was great. It didn't really change anything to his touring career. We didn't outside of the advance money, which I think was like 15 grand. Didn't change our lives financially, but I would say from every other aspect, it was an awesome learning curve.
Totally,
And it had
and it
nothing.
kind of just happened. Yeah.
And my relationship with the label. What everyone scared me was about creative control. That was like the big thing. They
Yep.
were awesome on every aspect. Like let us release what we wanted to release with very little no's.
Were you sure
And
of that going in? Did you like talk
I
to them
was
about that
terrified
specifically?
that they were going to push him into more and more mainstream stuff, which I have no
Mhm.
problem with. For me,
Right.
it's like I like both sides of the spectrum, but artists sometimes don't like to be pushed in a different way.
Hmm.
So I was very terrified of that, just given who they were and their resume of stuff before. It was all 100% mainstream.
But even
So it
looking
was,
back, did you bring that up to them even in your like initial conversations? Like, will you allow creative control?
yeah. But I mean, in the end, you also read major horror stories of artists and fighting with labels or getting shelved. And if you're shelved in an option deal, you're kind of trapped from doing anything else. So
Yep.
we were looking at all those scenarios of what we do.
Right.
Uh, with that being said, it was awesome. The artist dragged it on a little longer than it should have lasted because he went slow. So
Hmm.
what should have probably took maybe a year and a half to get through took 3.
Mm.
That was the major downside, I would say. But everything else was great, and yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it
no
just
no
happened to work
complaints on
out. They
my
didn't
side.
keep you
We
in
happened to work out, like
the
like you
two
hear
extra
about horror
options.
stories, and we got lucky.
Yeah.
And I
Cheers
think
to
it also
that.
really helped. I don't know how it would have went if they didn't get bought out by a super major.
Totally. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So I guess that's what I mean. Like looking back, do you think it was a good idea? Like obviously, learning experience wise, it happened to work out. You got to sometimes charge those things to the game, and it ended up
Yeah,
being
I
fine.
mean, given he was an underground, I would say the learning experience side was worth it. Had we not done it and maybe taken a lot of that same music and shopped it around to labels that maybe we wouldn't have gotten the streams or the distribution the same,
Hmm.
we might have gotten like the touring aspect, like in electronic music. Like if you look at like Ibiza, Miami Music Week, like all these things, all
Yeah.
these events are controlled by labels. So like Solid Grooves has their big label party, Jamie
Yeah.
Jones has his big label. So when you're not releasing with them, you're kind of sometimes excluded from those events unless you're a big ticket seller. So on the other side of the coin, maybe had we gone that route, the touring side might have been different.
Interesting.
So you never know really. I mean, the thing about choosing a fork in the road is you sometimes never know if it was the right or wrong choice, even if it feels right.
Right. Yeah. It's not.
So
Yeah. Not about what could have been, but just yeah, it worked out, and that you didn't get locked
it worked
into a
out.
deal that you
We
were
got
trying to get
like
out of.
nothing went seriously bad. Maybe the other side could have been better, but maybe the other side also wouldn't have worked out, and we would have missed out on millions of streams that helped his
Yeah.
profile a bit. So
Yeah.
in the end, no real negatives.
Right.
But I'm sure you've dealt with the other side of that where things might go wrong, and I don't know. What do you see comes up the most?
Again, it really comes from artists not understanding what they signed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, a lot of it is they're in a deal like you were just saying with multiple options, things like that, and then they do have a song that blows up. Then everyone comes out of the woodwork trying to sign them, trying to work with them and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I'm actually stuck in this 4 option deal," and that's when they keep you in the option. When you do well, when you are successful, that's when they'll lock you in. If you kind of just flop, they'll let you out. They're not going to care that much, but
Yeah, so we did good from our perspective. From a
right,
perspective of a label that size, we were probably on the low side of it.
right, that definitely played into it. But if you
Yeah,
were crushing it doing John Summit numbers, they probably would have kept you in those second options that they just disregarded.
100%. And even though each option went up dramatically, it wouldn't have equated if we took off.
Right.
But on the other side of the scenario, that could have been the reason why someone becomes a John Summit, is those resources.
Yep.
Um, what's your take on 360 deals?
Don't do them. They're definitely not. They're definitely not worth it. So I may not have just. I'm. I. Where do you see them come up the most?
It hasn't. When we did that deal, since I didn't understand the language, and it was bigger agreement than what I did when I signed my mortgage, which was pretty big.
Right.
Like I think there was two separate agreements, one for the main agreement, and then there was a separate publishing agreement. I want to say each one was like 50 pages. So when something like
Right.
that comes in and there's money involved, it seems really scary because you're like, well, how much needs to be explained in 100 pages between the two, you know?
Right.
So I was constantly reading and asking the lawyer over and over. There's nothing where they get access to touring revenue or naming or owning any of the naming or what is it, the any of the RIP as a brand, not the music itself. I was making sure more than anything all that was protected, because I'm like, all right, even if we get screwed on this deal, the music side, and we take off, where we might lose there, we hopefully will make up for it by making 10, 50, 100,000 a show.
Totally. But I mean, that's a good
And
point when it comes to understanding these deals. Is like, even though it's 50 pages, even though a record contract might be 10 pages, you could still like boil it down to what really matters. It's like, what are the deliverables? How long can I not put out other music? And like, how much am I going to get paid? Like,
mm-hmm.
you don't need to look in the boilerplate indemnification in the miscellaneous section. You don't need to worry about the assignment section. If you can't afford a lawyer, just keep it to what's important.
I mean, I'm glad I hired a lawyer because we changed a lot in the agreement, you know. And
For
for the
sure.
low, like I said, I kind of told you what we made. I think we maybe spent 800 on a lawyer. So which I don't know, that might have been an overpay, but it didn't feel like it when the amount of stuff that got fixed and changed in it.
For a 50-page contract, for 50
Yeah.
pages worth of contract, seems definitely worth it.
And it was probably between the lawyer and the label's legal team, there might have been a month or maybe a month and a half of back and forth. How I don't remember how often, but maybe a weekly phone call where he would give us updates of where we were at and if we wanted to push back on a few things.
Cool.
Um, so yeah, I mean, on my side, it was totally worth getting the lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I guess let's go with some final advice before we end this. What is the final piece of legal advice you would give to every young new producer starting out, especially if they don't have money?
Put it in your contracts into ChatGPT is the biggest thing. Like, I don't know, I'm super into AI these days. I'm very into like the whole idea of making AI agents to delegate my tasks, my repetitive tasks. Put it into ChatGPT. It'll give you bullet points, and like I said, there's no excuse. And then, that's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, I agree there. I'm also doing the same. I've been on AI for like 4 years now, early
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT days. Um, I'm not implementing it as much as I would like because I feel like learning how to set up these agents at this point, where as busy as I am, might take up too much time. I know you were looking for someone. I tried to connect you with somebody, but I don't think that worked out. But I'm trying to find someone I could maybe hire
We'll
on a
talk
case by
offline
case.
about this.
Oh, let's do this. Um, what were you advising, I guess, artists before AI to handle these types of things without maybe having access to the legal costs?
Well, then you might be forced to read the contract, but you still don't need to read every line. You don't need to read all 20 pages. Yeah, keep it to what's
Yeah.
important. Keep it to the compensation section. You could point out certain terms.
I mean, I guess the good news for who's listening here is most of the electronic music label agreements are like 1 to 5 pages, and in my opinion, very, very basic. If you have like a little bit
I
of
think a lot of
comprehension
people
skills.
just see like a certain length and get overwhelmed right away. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's obviously understandable, but it's just something you'll eventually have to take the time to look through. Like, there's no excuse for not taking 20 minutes to try to understand it. Try to understand as much as you can. There's no
I
excuse
think at
not
a
to
bare
try.
minimum, you could skip to the terms section, a section if there's a section about publishing, a section about any exclusivities. I think on a basic like single or EP release, as long as you check out probably at least from my perspective, those three, you really can't be that screwed, because if a label's only doing a single or EP release with you and not wanting more, the money's not even that good to
Right.
overly stress it.
Right. And I'm curious what you think. I've been dealing a lot with artists who we're talking about how artists don't read the contract, artists like don't pay attention to their business. Do you think artists like should want to take more an active interest in like the negotiations and what's going on? Like should they be looped in the emails, or do you think they should like defer
I
and just
think
focus on music?
so. My biggest learning lesson with the first artist I managed was I was so excited, and he was young and new, that I just wanted to do everything I could to learn as I went. And I might have handheld too much of it, so when things grew, he really didn't know how to handle any of these things.
Right.
And as things grew, my attention needed to be more focused on things that were probably more important than like a lot of these little details. But we weren't also making the money to hire people. And I would say in retrospect, I think an artist should try to do as much as they humanly can in every aspect of the business as early as they can. So one, and then the main reason I'll say why is so later when they hire people, whether it's a manager, a lawyer, an assistant, like any type of thing, a label manager, like anything that might come into their career later, if they know how to do all that themselves, and they're going to probably understand that person they're hiring actually knows what they're doing, or is going to screw them.
I think I like just tweeted this. I think you're in my brain because I feel the exact same way.
And I say this a lot. I actually tell every DJ in my world, I tell every DJ or producer that's trying to tour to throw their own party at least once in their career. Go out and get a venue deal, because they all want to complain about maybe how the pay works for them and it's unfair and all this stuff. And I'm like, go out and do your own party. You're going to take a huge L or a small L, even if the costs are low. And then you're going to be like, oh, okay, now I get it. You're going to see how hard that part is, and then you're going to understand like why maybe a promoter can be greedy at times. It's not that they're being greedy. They're kind of, when they can make money, it makes up for when they lose.
Right.
And as a whole, like when I look at my yearly scale, I'm like, all right, I lost maybe 20 out of 50 times, but the wins should balance that out and have enough for me to live.
But I think your point of trying to do everything yourself, so once you get a manager, you could know whether or not they're doing a good job. I think that's such like an underrated point.
It's 100%. And but I also grew up with that. Like my dad, I lived in a household where my dad was like, don't ever pay anybody to do anything that you can't do. So like from changing an oil to the tire to like fixing things in my house, like I can do like basic plumbing and very basic electrical. My dad was a contractor. And so there wasn't any, like in his mind, he was like, I'm not going to waste money on anything that I can't figure out how to do myself. So even if he had never done it before, he would try to do it. And I kind of grew up learning that lesson. It was probably one of the more important lessons I've learned. And so to this, like I know how to like do my own flyers for my events, because in the early days of promoting, I had no money to pay a graphic designer. So I was like, I'll go watch a bunch of Photoshop videos on YouTube.
But for sure. But then it's so interesting how in music, like in the music industry, there's such a pervasive mindset of artists should get a team kind of like as soon as they can, so they could just focus on the music. And that kind of seems like a toxic mentality, because it's what turns them into not wanting to even paying attention or not knowing how to do any of this.
100%. I mean, it's kind of the problem with AI right now is everybody's kind of going there for their first choice of figuring something out. So you're kind of skipping out on critical thinking.
Hmm.
Where my approach, even how I prepare for like my content, like whether it's a podcast or my YouTube content, is I try to write out every possible idea or bullet point related to that thing I want to talk about as I can from my perspective. Then I
Right.
throw it into AI and I go, what did I possibly miss related to this topic? And then I'm like, oh
Uh-huh.
yeah, I completely forgot about that. So I'm
Hmm.
more using it as like as an assistant rather than a primary resource.
Hmm. Or using it as a starting point, but not just letting
Hmm.
it do everything.
Everything. So the amount of times I'll have someone send me something and 100% of it was written by ChatGPT, and I can immediately, like, if you use it enough, you understand some of the language that it commonly uses, which I highly recommend. You can go and do your custom GPT settings,
Hmm.
Google the most 50 words used by AI and ban those words from your results. It's really helpful. That's how I have mine set up. And then I also maybe ban the hyphens because humans don't use hyphens like that. They use
Right,
commas.
right. Yep.
So, but the amount of times I'm getting stuff that's already written in a way where I can already tell like this person put zero effort. And I don't know, as an artist, the only way to stand out is to be unique. So if you're going to the exact same thing everybody else is doing, you're probably never going to stand out.
Absolutely.
So the AI thing scares me for that thing because I do think it like just what we were talking about, where an artist should know how to do everything themselves. I think in every aspect, maybe that AI is going to take that away from people. And it has a
Yeah,
lot of
just
pros, and I use it every day. So I'm not saying don't use it, but I'm just saying like learn how to do things yourself as well.
right. The issues come from being lazy with it. Like these, you see
Hmm.
all these cases of lawyers citing fake cases and things like that because they didn't double check. You have to double, and at this point, it's like inexcusable because you hear so many of these stories of ChatGPT making stuff up.
Well, what blew my mind away is I saw data come out recently that I think like the majority, I don't quote me on this, but like a really high percentage, like over 60%, maybe as high as 80 of the results come from Reddit.
Mm,
And
I
if you've
believe that
ever been
100%.
on Reddit, you should know that that shouldn't be your number one source of things.
Right. No, I believe that
Um,
100%.
so it's crazy. With that being said, it's a great tool, and if you don't have money, $20 ChatGPT thing is awesome. Uh, what are some things? Let's see. I kind of lost my place there where we got sidetracked. Um, I guess this next question I kind of already answered, but I'll let you maybe talk more about it. But I was going to ask about some free or low cost resources, but you have it on your website. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit more than what I did about that?
Yeah,
Promote it, I guess.
on my website, I sell just contract templates. Like they're literally the same basic templates I use with my clients: template producer agreements, template featured artist agreements, template collab agreements, template management agreements. These are really the basis. So instead of just trying to like figure it out yourself, trying to put it together with a few different things you've gotten, like every time I've seen someone try to together their own contract, it was trash. Whether they input it to ChatGPT will if you just say like make me a management contract, it'll not be good. It'll be missing a lot of things. Um, so yeah, so those could be helpful. Yeah, but otherwise, I think it's really underrated. Also, people like asking questions to their friends. I think is super underrated. People see something on Instagram, they see like a clip, "Don't sell your masters," and then like, "Oh, I can't," and then they're just applying that to everything going forward. But they
Yeah.
need to ask their friends, and their friends might not know what they're talking about, but people just like communicating more about what they're dealing with, I think
So
that's so undervalued.
I'm a big promoter on networking. I say it's probably more powerful than your music in this industry. And
Hmm.
if you do it correctly, like not going out the network and for the ability to purely get something immediately, but like building genuine relationships, because the more of those you have, the more phones you could pick up when you need something. So it's like maybe I don't have this answer, but that answer is 2 or 3 phone calls away. But it's
Hmm.
only that's only possible if you actually go out and build some genuine relationships in the industry, so you have people to lean on.
Or just reaching out to people not when you need something from them.
Yeah. Yeah. I I want to end it with two things. One, since we talked about AI, what are some misconceptions, I guess, now with releasing music using AI resources, whether it's a generated vocal or top line, or even now, like what's happening with like I see nonstop ads lately for Sumo. I don't couldn't tell you much about it, but I think for like a few monthly charge, it says I can make 500 tracks a month, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I
I've
mean, it, can people really release music like this and make money, or is it just like a big
Well, can they
scheme?
actually make like legally they can make money from it? Legally, yeah. I mean, you might have seen like you AI needs some sort of human or yeah, AI needs some sort of like human interaction for it to be copyrightable. Like just a machine doing something on its own is not can't copyright that. But if you give it a prompt, I think I saw that that makes it copyrightable, makes it protectable. I don't
Hmm.
know, don't quote me on that, but regardless, if you have AI in your song, if you have an AI vocal, you could still release it. I'm pretty certain that has nothing that AI doesn't affect just releasing at this point.
Makes sense.
And to Suno,
I
you can put out 500 songs. You could put out you type in a prompt, you say make me a 112 BPM tropical house trap song, and it'll do that. It'll
so I've been
be
warning.
generic.
I've been warning producers that I know to just be careful, because I think like in the if you look at like the graphics side of AI, it's all being trained. I mean, all of this AI stuff is mostly being trained on data that they haven't gotten correctly.
Right.
So if you're trained, you just need to be careful which AIs you're using, because if it's trained on someone else's work without their permission, and I think even if it's not a problem now, it might be one day.
Definitely. I mean, that's the thing with like you might have seen some commercial music places or the bigger labels are more hesitant to use splice samples or to allow songs with splice samples just because there's like a super remote chance that the something might have been wrong with the producer. The producer didn't understand does exactly what you're talking about. It just makes a mess for
Hmm.
everybody.
I'm getting that a lot, actually. Some of the labels I work with will almost the first question after they listen to the demo, they'll just write back like, "Oh, I dig this. Is there a splice sample in it?" I mean,
Interesting.
that question's coming up quite often, actually. So now I'm almost getting ahead of it. And when a producer or a friend sends me a record and they're like, "Oh, you know this label? Do you think you could send it for me?" I'm like, "Is there a splice sample in it? Is there an AI vocal or a YouTube vocal or anything that you might have gotten without permission?" Most of the time, I tell them you'll probably get away. They're like, "I'm like, you'll probably get away with it unless
Hmm.
the record goes so big that it becomes a problem, and then you should make that it shouldn't be a big deal either way because you have the
Right.
resources at that point."
Right.
It's kind of this ask for blah. It's kind of one of those things of like ask for. It's better to ask for forgiveness and permission. Sometimes that can play a role, but from my perspective, if I'm doing someone a favor, I don't want anything that falls back on me if I'm not
Right.
like managing the artist, especially.
Right. That's you're right. That's what I meant as far as does AI like change anything? What you were just saying would be true with royalty free samples. If you had a collaborator, if someone sent you like a loop or something, it would all be treated the same.
Makes sense. A couple myths. Is it true, or is there a second rule to sampling? If something's sampled under a certain amount of seconds, it's fine.
That's a myth. You
Figured.
can't sample the tiniest bit technically.
Um, what is the most outdated myth in this business that comes up a lot for you,
Oof. I'm not I'm not sure the most outdated one. I mean, I see things all the
or
time
common?
where people will just say something's industry standard, so therefore that's the argument for including a term in a contract. That's their argument for including like a very long sunset clause in a management contract. They just say it's industry standard. But if someone says that, like just because the industry standard doesn't mean it's good. The industry used
I,
to be
f-
way less favorable to artists.
I feel like that's one of those statements that people use when they don't actually know the real answer.
Right.
It's like, oh, I don't actually know, so it's industry standard.
Yeah. And yeah, that doesn't mean it makes sense for you. Doesn't mean yeah, it doesn't mean they even know
Yeah.
what they're talking about.
For me, the only time I would the only time I really would actually put like any kind of sunset clause in an agreement is if I'm really developing an act that's generating $0 at this point. It's
Hmm.
like I don't want to. I know that it's probably going to be 2 to 5 years before I see anything worthwhile,
Hmm.
and I just want to make sure when we get to that point, you don't walk away and I invested 5 years of my time for nothing, or however many years. But if
Right.
someone's already generating a decent amount of revenue where like my percentage is making me enough money to account for my time, to me it's a pointless thing to put in there.
Right. Right. And I think the biggest thing is a lot of artists will just like kind of end the. And so, I see artists who are kind of like opposed to that as a matter of principle, which is fine. But then they won't even take the time to like understand the other side of it. Like, here's
Hmm.
why. They'll just have heard that, or they'll have heard that these sunset clauses are industry standard. They'll just accept it. But they should understand what they're getting into. And I think a lot of people are too scared to even ask questions.
I try to explain it and I tell everybody like, look, I'll tear up if we're a year in and there's almost no money being generated or very little and you're just unhappy, like, hey, I could be somewhere else doing something better. There's no reason for me to activate a sunset. I'll just be like, void the agreement. But it's more to protect me on that if I did years of work and if you're making $5,000 or $10,000 a year and I'm only getting 10 or 15% of that, it's $1,500 a year at probably I'm putting 20, 30 hours a week, a week, look, 20 to 30 hours of work a week into it.
Totally.
So it's
And
just
I
like
know
it's like a backside protection on the long term.
totally. That's exactly how it should work. And yeah, I've talked a lot about like how to protect artists and how to make sure artists don't get trapped in bad deals. But recently, or like literally right on my agenda this week, I'm dealing with multiple managers who had an artist signed to a management contract and just ghosted them and just reappeared with a new manager without even talking about it.
Yeah,
So
I
as
had
much
that
as every
happen.
as much as every artist is trapped in a bad deal, I have a story where an artist screwed over a manager equally.
Yeah, I had one like that where I was on vacation and I get a call from our agent that's like, "Hey, did you know about this show on New Year's?" And I was like, "There's no show on New Year's." And they send me an email and they're like, "Look, they're saying that your artist's manager and they named the manager approved this deal." And I was like, "Don't know who that guy is, but looks like I don't have an artist anymore."
Mm,
And I just walked away from it. It was easy. That one was easy. And I just actually separate. I had an artist. So, like I said, any new developing act, I kind of have to do the sunshine clause and I have a template agreement. I just separated from an artist that I just wasn't, there was no money being made. I didn't like the way our work ethic was going together. And I just voided the agreement.
yeah,
I told him there's no point of activating the sunshine clause when there's not even money being
right.
made.
The sunset clause is for when the artist goes to and just reappears with somebody else.
Exactly.
That's when it's for.
Um, Last one. Um, No, actually, that was really it. So I think we can end there.
Cool.
I really appreciate you taking the time, man. This was very helpful. Anyone listening who needs legal advice, check out Adam Freedman's website, social media. Your Twitter's full of knowledge worth
Yeah,
following.
it's all AC Freedman Law, FREEDMANLAW. That's my Instagram, Twitter, website.
I'll
Hit me
put
up.
all the links in the description of all these posts.
Cool.
I appreciate it. Thanks again, man.
All right. This was good.
Yeah.